Hello friends, Clage back to another Punishing Grey Raven guide today, and we are going to be talking about the newest fire amplifier, Vera Geiravor. Vera returns to take over the amplifier role on the fire team, shoring it up greatly, and she will be replacing Liv Imperia. Liv is not only the oldest meta unit we currently have in the game, Liv is the original amplifier. She was the first amplifier released over 3 years ago, so she has been carrying the torch for the fire team quite literally for a very long time, and with Vera's arrival does finally get a break. So this will be the first time in my history of playing PGR where we do not have a meta Liv on one of the teams, but I have a sneaking suspicion that will not be something that lasts very long. I would expect to see Liv with a new frame sometime in the moderately near future. But for today, let's go over what we are going to be getting in our new fire amplifier in Vera. So Vera, much like Lilith before her, is a Gen 3 amplifier. She brings notably improved buffs and support in her kit for the entire fire team, as well as the ability to join the field and do very solid damage in her own right, while still not sacrificing any of that supportive nature you expect out of the amplifier class. So the big things Vera is going to do is she's going to make the fire team a full 3-character rotation once again, which is going to be quite nice, as that will free up Watanabe from having to do double ultimate rotations. This is very nice quality of life and just overall efficiency for the fire team. Watanabe's double ultimate rotations are notably finicky. It takes a long time for him to build up that second ult energy if you go through 2 full rotations. So he'll be able to back down to a single ult rotation, which will make him much easier to handle and much less finicky to get a proper rotation with. So of course, we will go over all the goodies you get with Vera, her evolutions, weapons, memory builds, cubs, my pull recommendations, all that good stuff. Before we get to that, I do want to give a slight overview on Vera. Unlike Lilith, who joined a dark team that was notably outdated, Corinna Nashir is one of the oldest tanks in the entire game. Lamia is a fairly outdated dark attacker at this point. Vera is walking into a much more modern team. Watanabe was our first Gen 3 tank. Lucia Pyra Oath just came out not too long ago and still has an absolutely bonkers kit for an attacker. So unlike Lilith, who came onto a team where she immediately becomes the damage dealer of her elemental team, Vera is much more complementary. Vera is not going to show up and put the entire fire team on her back and be doing all the damage by herself. Now, if you do not have a well-built fire team, if you are lacking Pyra Oath and Watanabe, or you're using budget units on your fire team, Vera can absolutely slot in and become your main DPS. That will work quite well for her, but she's going to be at her best when she is acting as a support who also takes the field and filling out the meta fire team. So let's go over what all you get when rolling Vera and building here. We're going to start with the evolutions. Going to go into the skill menu because right now the evolution overview menu is a little bugged on the test server. But let's start talking what Vera gets at each evolution. So at S5, all of Vera's hold basic attacks and her second ultimate will trigger all QTEs available on cooldown. This is the bog standard S5. Everyone gets this these days. At SS, pinging blue orbs will now be a 1-to-1 exchange, so anytime Vera pings a blue orb, however many blue orbs are pinged, she will generate that many yellow orbs in exchange. So this is notably important as the yellow orbs are used during Vera's first ultimate to charge up the buffs that she will gain in her second form after casting her first ult. So getting a 1-to-1 exchange is a very nice upgrade to have. In addition, at SS, Vera's hold basic attack in her base mode will automatically ping 3 blue orbs if you fully charge it and let the animation play out in its entirety. This will in turn create 3 yellow orbs because 3 blue orbs have been pinged in the process. Also, when her absolute pyre buff is active, her second ultimate will do more damage depending on how many yellow orbs were used by her first ult. If you ping 3 to 4 yellow orbs when using the first ult, it will double the damage. If you do 5 to 6, it will triple the damage. So a nice bonus to her second ult damage that you get at SS. As always, SS is the base level you need for Vera to be a playable character. At double S3, Vera gets some nice boosts at double S3. However, this isn't the major upgrade we've seen on a few other characters like Selena and Han Ying and other characters of late, where their double S3s feel like the place to get the character to truly be online. In Vera's case, at double S3, allies healed by her are going to gain her Fire Tempered buff. This is a base part of her kit. Basically, anytime Vera heals a character, they will gain 20% extra fire damage for 8 seconds. At double S3, that will add on another 10%, taking the total buff to 30% extra fire damage for 8 seconds. That is quite good. In addition, if Dark Flow rotations are being used, the Fire Tempered buff will give an additional 10% to that bonus, so it would be 30% total extra Dark Flow damage, which is quite nice since now, with Vera's arrival, we can actually have Dark Flow teams available. In addition, at double S3, when Absolute Pyre is active, it will gain a damage multiplier based on the number of yellow orbs consumed for her hold basic attack while the buff is active. So just like the double S buff, the more yellow orbs that are used when casting her first ult, the higher the damage multiplier will be when using the hold basic attack in the Absolute Pyre buff mode. So same thing, you ping 3 to 4 yellow orbs, the damage doubles. If you ping 5 to 6 of them, the damage triples. So notable damage increase, but again, double S3 isn't the absolute game changer that some other units have seen of late. Triple S is where Vera truly gets her biggest boost. This is far and away the biggest unlock of anything in her kit. If you are a spender, this would be my recommended target for you because this is where Vera really starts to shine. But at Triple S, anytime a member is switched in, not just Vera, this is any member on her team, all QTE cooldowns are immediately reset. That's always super nice. More cooldowns means more Da Vinci procs and all that good stuff. In addition, now the Fire Tempered buff that Vera grants by healing her allies gets another 10% tacked on top. That is a total of 40% extra fire and or dark flow damage for 8 seconds every time Vera heals someone. That is a massive uptick in elemental damage. This is why the Triple S is quite strong, so very, very useful buff to have there. Vera will also gain 3 yellow orbs and 10 signature energy upon entering the field, and when she enters Last Blaze, which is her secondary mode after casting her first ult, she's going to gain 10 more signature energy and 30 Rekindled Doom. Rekindled Doom is the stacks that Vera uses to cast her hold basic attack in her Last Blaze form. That is where a lot of her damage and signature energy gain happens in her second form, so this is quite nice. Gaining the 3 yellow orbs on entry is also going to enable a different rotation for Vera at Triple S, and we'll talk about that once we get to combat and rotations. Also at Triple S, pinging a set of blue orbs will grant even more signature energy, 12 more every time you do a 3-ping of blue orbs. This just speeds up the ability to get in and out of her various modes and cast her ultimates. And when her Absolute Pyre buff is active, the base damage of all her hold basic attacks from in base form and blaze form will be increased by 50%. So a pretty big jump in damage on those. So once again, Triple S is by far her most notable upgrade of any of her evolutions. This drastically changes the character's output and changes her rotations to be smoother and more friendly. So if you're a spender, this is definitely worth shooting for. Triple S 3, 6, and plus, we are going to get a damage boost from the Absolute Pyre buff being increased by 50% further. The hold basic attacks in all her forms will now get a 50% damage buff, and her ultimates will also get a 50% damage buff. So notable evolutions there as always. These are the whale evolutions. Obviously, if you're a whale, you're going to see notable returns on these. 50% extra damage on every notable part of your kit is pretty strong, but again, the big jump is going to be at double S to make her base playable and triple S for her most notable upgrades. Moving on to memory builds. So Vera is going to have 2 main memory builds depending on the status of your fire team and what you are looking for Vera to do. For most players, if you have the meta fire team built, your main build is going to be a support build. So we're going to run 4-piece Da Vinci, 2-piece Einstein, and 2-piece Guinevere harmonized. You can harmonize either of the 2-piece sets. It does not matter which one is equipped on Vera, as long as you have them active. If you do not have harmonization, either Einstein or Guinevere is fine. It is about 6 and 1/2 dozen the other, depending on which one you want to use. But if you have her 6-star weapon and you can afford to harmonize, definitely slap the other 2-piece set on there. This will be your go-to for Vera in the vast majority of situations. Again, Vera is not going to be the DPS carry for the fire team, and she can still execute her rotations and take the field, do solid damage while rocking a support set. Now, if your fire team is underdeveloped or you don't have Lucia Pyra Oath to carry the damage, you can swap over to a DPS focused set. So for that, what you're going to do is you're going to use her 4-piece signature set, Hervor. Hervor is a good signature set. However, it is not character defining like a lot of the 4-piece signature sets are. This is really only useful to Vera if she is going to be your main DPS on the fire team. So if you do go that route, we'll use 4-piece Hervor, 2-piece Kadi on the bottom row, and then if you have the 6-star weapon, harmonize to 4-piece Kadi. If not, just run the 2-piece, take the extra signature energy, and go from there. So for the DPS build, your resonances, you're going to want signature move on the bottom and 15 attack of any type up top. For the support build, since Vera is an amplifier, we are going to swap the bottom resonance to the class passive, the amplifier class passive. This obviously is a powerful buff. Having it, with 6 extra levels is always good. If you can only afford to build one memory set, highly recommend focusing on the support set. This is what's going to suit Vera best. If you have the fire team remotely online at all, this will be what you go to. You can put it on and basically never take it off. But if you are looking for Vera to be your damage dealer, try out that damage set. It will work out just fine for you. So, on to weapons. I am very happy to report, and you will be very happy to know, Vera is not remotely locked behind her 6-star weapon in any shape or form. Having the 6-star weapon does not alter her rotations. All it does is give her some increased damage. So, if you are saving for Devil May Cry, if you are low on resources, cannot afford to try and go hunt down a weapon at the 80% rate up right now, that is totally okay for Vera. You can kick the can down the road and use her 5-star weapon just fine. Obviously, the big note of getting the 6-star weapon is going to be the ability to harmonize, and of course the ability to have weapon resonances. So if you do choose to go get the 6-star weapon, you're looking at possible resonances. The first one should be Glorious Spear. Glorious Spear just gives an extra buff every time Vera heals someone. You're going to be using her heals all the time to keep the fire temper buff active, so this should be your priority number 1. After that, you can go between Superconducting Axial Ray for the entire team boost, or using Incandescence for Vera's personal damage. Vera does not need deadline timing for any of her rotations, so you do not need to worry about putting DLT on as a weapon resonance. But again, skip the weapon if you need to. She will work just fine without it. If you can afford it, harmonization obviously is a very powerful tool and will give a notable bump up in her ability to output damage on the field and to be supportive with adding the extra memory set. Moving on to Vera's Cub. Vera's Cub is good, not quite as bustedly good as a couple of the past Cubs, but still quite strong. The most notable thing about Vera's Cub is that the main skill that you use actually comes with its own built-in grouping. You do not have to use the active skill of the Cub to get it to pull in enemies. This is really nice because it means you have more grouping on deck for just playing the character the way you would play her anyway. So getting that is a nice boost to have, and of course it does increase her damage of her ultimate, her first one, quite a bit. So nice boost to have there. Having the extra fire damage and extra dark flow damage is obviously very welcome, and if you want to ball out on the Cub, get 4 or 5 skills, increasing the attack and all that good stuff is there. As for the Cub's active skill, if you need even more grouping, you feel like the base grouping on the skill from using Vera's base form isn't enough, you can swap to the second active skill. That will cause even more grouping, but if you're comfortable getting enough grouping by just using Vera's base form, you can leave this on the first active skill since it does a little bit more damage. So a nice Cub, certainly not required to have by any stretch of the imagination for Vera to function, but if you've got Cub tickets available and you want to pump up Vera's output a little bit, certainly worth grabbing if you are interested. That goes over all of Vera's equipment, so let's go talk about the team compositions. So, as mentioned, Vera will be slotting in on the Meta Fire team, which will now have her as the starter. Lucia Pyro Oath will remain the leader, as Lucia will still be carrying the damage for the Fire team, and of course Watanabe as the tank. As for their personal builds, Watanabe will be focusing entirely on his tank role going forward, but he still will be taking the field during rotations in Warzone. So for that, we're going to stick with his 4-piece Alphonse and then 4-piece Shakespeare harmonized. If you don't have harmonization on Watanabe, feel free to just run 2-piece Shakespeare and leave it at that for now. But this will be the same going forward. As before, you'll want Watanabe's class skill on the bottom and his red orb up top. Pyro Oath, of course, will stick with her main attacker build, which is her 4-piece signature set, and 4-piece Kadi with the harmonization. Don't mind my lack of resonances and stuff here. I do not have Lucia fully built on my test server account, but if you need build information or guide help on Lucia, I do have a guide available for her, but nothing really changes. She remains the leader. She remains the damage carry on this team. So if you are lacking Watanabe, there are budget options, of course. You can slot in Bridget as the fire tank. If you do this, I would recommend swapping Vera over to her damage set and having Bridget become the Da Vinci bot, have her take on the supportive roles, memory sets for the team. If you are lacking Pyro Oath and need a different option there, you can slot in any of the other fire attackers, turn them into the Da Vinci bot, and have your tank take the field, whichever makes more sense for you. But in general, unless you are having to use budget options, Vera will remain the support and be handling the Da Vinci procs for the fire team. So with this team built now as the meta team, as I mentioned, all three of them will see the field. The rotation gets a lot more smoothed out, a lot more easier to manage, especially for Watanabe. So this is going to be probably the most complete team in the game right now. This is the most modern team available in PGR with Vera's arrival, and its rotations feel very smooth, and it does a lot of damage, especially if you have all these characters heavily invested. So as for what to prioritize when building Vera, bare minimum is SS. You need SS for the character to function, but that is it. That is all you need for Vera to function. If you can get one copy and then spend your pain cage skulls to get her to SS, you're good. She's ready to go. Again, you can put off the 6-star weapon for the time being. Cub is not necessary, and while she does get some good upgrades at SS3 and especially SSS, they are not required for her to function. After you get her to SS, I would recommend the 6-star weapon after that, due to having harmonization and resonances. Those are both very valuable tools to have. After that, I would prioritize going all the way to SSS. Again, that is where her most notable evolution upgrade kicks in. And then lastly, you can pick up the Cub if you are interested. So as for should you pull Vera Geiravor, this is a little bit less complicated than it was with Selena. Vera is not going to have her role immediately being competed for by the Devil May Cry characters. While Selena came in and she is a physical attacker and Virgil is also a physical attacker, Dante is a fire attacker, not a fire amplifier. So he is not going to come in and be a competitor for Vera's spot. So I can much easier recommend that you pick up Vera at least one copy because she is so free to play friendly. You only need one copy to get this character online and running, along with a 5-star weapon, which you can get for free. And of course, picking up Vera if you are planning on going in on Dante for the Devil May Cry collab and making him your go-to fire attacker. Vera is going to increase his output quite a bit with her amplifier abilities. So if you are absolutely strapped, you are making sure you save every last thing for Devil May Cry, you can skip Vera if needed. However, I think it's a much harder argument to make to skip this character compared to skipping Selena because of how friendly she is as a free-to-play character, and again, because she is going to notably boost Dante when he comes onto the field. In addition to that, she does make it so we actually have a functioning Dark Flow team available. We now have more than one member doing Dark Flow damage, and her Dark Flow kit comes with a lot of buffs and increased damage for that particular elemental effect. So you are getting some extra value with that if you choose to pull on Gera. So excuse me, Vera Geiravor. I've done that like 4 different times in various recordings that I've had to redo, but this one's already 18 minutes in. We're leaving it. Anyway, I digress. So, with all that said, Vera is very free-to-play friendly, and in addition to that, her combat is a lot simpler than Selena, which you probably could notice if you're looking at the length of this guide compared to Selena's. So, let's go ahead, get into the training mode. I will show you how Vera's combat works, and we can start talking about how to handle her on the field and her rotations. Alright, so Vera's combat kit is notably simpler compared to the last guide we did with Selena, so this one should be a lot easier to wrap your mind around and get a feel for out the gate, because it's pretty straightforward. But nonetheless, I want to go through all the individual pieces, teach you how it works and how it flows together, and help better explain why we do what we do for rotations and such. So, much like most Gen 3 characters, Vera has a base form and then an enhanced form after you cast her first ultimate. In her case, her base form is known as Untamed Impulse, and after using her first ult, she will go into her enhanced form known as Last Blaze. I'm just going to refer to these as base form and blaze mode for simplicity's sake, and so to not inundate you with a bunch of extra nouns. So just keep that in mind going forward. But let's talk base form first. So, just as always, character has a basic attack string. Vera has no reason to use her basic attack string. You don't need to spam it for signature energy. You don't need to build extra orbs. It is basically completely unused in her standard rotations. So you can more or less ignore the fact that she has a basic attack string. In addition, Vera does have a parry. If you tap dodge while at neutral, not moving the control stick in any way, Vera will go into this parry animation. If you successfully parry an attack, you can tap basic to do a follow-up counter attack. This is basically just there for style and cool points. Unfortunately, it is not going to be used in any standard rotation or standard gameplay. But if you do get to use Vera in a stylish mode like Trials of Simulacrum, which we have going on right now, feel free to use the parry to your heart's content to show off and build up the style meter. So, Vera also can parry with using her basic attack. If you clash hitboxes in the middle of a basic attack string, it will also trigger the parry. But again, you're not going to be spamming basic attacks, so you're basically never going to have to worry about the parry unless you are doing some kind of stylish boss fight or Trials Simulacrum and whatnot. So, the actual tools that we will be using in base form. So, as you can see, Vera has only access to her blue orbs while in base form. If we ping a set of blue orbs, Vera will go into a multi-hit attack and simultaneously will create an equal number of yellow orbs for how many blaze or blue orbs were pings. So this comes with the double S buff if you have the character at double S, which again you should. That's the base level to be able to play the character. Anytime you utilize blue orbs, you will create an equal number of yellow orbs. Yellow orbs are used to increase the damage potency of attacks in her blaze mode and are consumed when we use her first ult, and we will get to that in just a moment. So pinging blue orbs and building yellow orbs is a key part of being in base mode. It also helps build signature energy. The other notable and probably most important attack Vera has in base mode is hold basic. So if you hold basic attack, you will see the core passive gauge charge. Once it is fully charged, Vera will charge forth, do a plunge attack. Letting this entire animation play out after you have fully charged the attack will consume 3 more blue orbs if they are available, and because those blue orbs are used, it will produce more yellow orbs just like it would have if you pinged the orbs manually. So, as you can imagine, the base form is basically all about using a combination of her blue orbs and this hold basic attack to build up enough signature energy and yellow orbs to activate her first ultimate. Something else of note with the plunge attack, you don't have to charge it all the way to get certain benefits of it. Anytime you use this attack, even if it was minorly charged, I think it was halfway we have to go, yeah. So if it's over half, this will give Vera heals at the end of the animation, which will activate the Fire Tempered buff, as we talked about in the evolution section. Fire Temper gives a base 20% extra fire damage without any of the evolution improvements. If you go to double S3 or triple S, this goes to 30 and 40% respectively. So utilizing the hold basic attack is very important because the Fire Tempered buff obviously is just free extra damage on top of everything Vera is doing. So once you've built up enough signature energy, we can go into her signature, which will activate and put her in blaze mode. When we use this, it's going to consume all the yellow orbs we have created. This will add damage modifiers to her hold basic in this mode, as well as her ultimate. So making sure you get 6 yellow orbs before you activate your first ultimate is a key part of making sure you're getting the most out of Vera's damage and her rotations. In her Blaze mode, you will notice once Vera goes into Blaze mode, she will consume a great deal of her own HP to activate her buffs and activate this mode. This is perfectly fine. You're not in danger from doing it. Her kit is built around this happening. You will be able to heal it back up, and we have lots of super armor, so you don't have to sweat going down to low HP when you go into this mode. But in Blaze mode, a couple things change. The core passive gauge obviously alters. This top part of the sword that glows white when you first activate last Blaze mode represents the absolute pyre buff that we talked about in the evolutions. This is what helps power a lot of her damage in Blaze mode. It is a time buff, so as this gauge ticks down, if it empties, the absolute pyre buff will end. And you can keep this gauge full and keep the last pyre buff active by doing a couple of things. The main one is going to be pinging red orbs. So just like in base form, Vera only has access to one type of orb. In this case, it is the red orb. So if we do a 3 ping, you're going to see this will build up the Rekindled Doom buff. This is the stacks that we talked about. They go on the lower bar down here, and the more of these we have active, the more it will enable her long hold to basic combo attack that she has access to in last Blaze mode. So for every orb you effectively get 10 Rekindled Doom. The gauge goes all the way to 60, so if we ping 2 red 3 pings, we will get a full bar of Rekindled Doom. Once Rekindled Doom is online, we can do hold to basic again. When we hold basic in Blaze form, Vera will go into a massively long combo string, activating QTEs and building a ton of signature energy. Once she builds enough signature energy in her Blaze form, we will have access to her other ultimate. We cast this. Vera does a rush, puts out some damage, and then she will leave behind this fire field. The fire field continuously heals any ally that is within it. This is super important because healing triggers the fire tempered buff, so this boosts not only Vera's damage, but will boost the entire team's damage if they stay within that fire field. So once you do your second ult and you swap Vera off the field, you're going to want to try and keep your other 2 characters in that fire field for maintaining the fire tempered buff, because doing so will essentially make that buff have 100% uptime for basically any time the other 2 characters are on the field, which is quite nice. So let me restart here and highlight a couple more things in Blaze mode. So again, we come in, we'll use the hold to basic, use 3 orbs, use 3 more orbs, and we're into the mode. So as you see here, the gauge is ticking down. If I ping red orbs, this will refill some of the absolute pyre buff. So ideally, what you do is once you get into Blaze mode, you're going to immediately ping your red orbs, keep the last pyre buff active, go into the hold basic attack, build up all the requisite signature energy, and cast your ultimate. This is pretty much Vera's entire combat kit. This is literally all there is to it. So let me go through the base game flow, and then we'll basically be able to go right into rotations. But when Vera first comes in on the field, use a combination of the hold basic to ping 3 orbs, ping 3 more orbs, activate our ultimate, spam 2 sets of red orbs, go into the hold basic combo. As soon as ultimate is available, ultimate goes off. The fire field comes out, and Vera is ready to switch off to the next fire character. That's it. That's the whole kit. Really, really straightforward, really simple, and frankly, a welcome change of pace after Selena. I don't have to talk at you for 28 and a half minutes to explain how to play the character at her base level, but that's basically it. There's not a lot of little nuances. There's not a lot of specialized tricks for playing Vera. She is use her orbs, get into her Blaze mode, use more orbs, do the big combo, do an ult, Dunzo. So with that taken care of, we can go ahead and talk about rotations. I am very happy to explain that there are only 2 rotations Vera really has, one for double S and double S3, and then another for triple S and beyond. One last thing I should highlight before we go into this. Let me iterate that when you do her first ultimate, so we do this, we build up our orbs. When ultimate comes online, make sure you tap this ultimate and don't hold it. If you hold it, that will activate Vera's Dark Flow damage rotation in Blaze form instead of fire damage. So if you are in a fire weak stage, make sure you are tapping ultimate and not holding it. The only time you ever hold ult is for the Dark Flow version. So if I actually hold this, you will see we get a slightly different animation, and now the damage being done is Dark Flow damage as opposed to fire damage. So the good news is that her rotations are the same for both, so you only have to learn one, which is quite nice. But with the combat kit explained, let's go ahead and talk about Vera's rotations. Alrighty, so as mentioned prior, Vera has 2 rotations you're going to be utilizing depending on what rank you have her at. So for SS and SS3, we're going to be utilizing a single ult rotation. Vera's not going to really have enough orbs to go through a double ult rotation without the triple S buff that we talked about. So we'll utilize a single ult rotation. This is going to help keep the amplifier buff rotating and keep it active for as long as we possibly can for the whole team. And in general, we'll get the most out of her without her staying on the field too long and then not getting the most out of her own buffs. So pretty straightforward to pick up. The general idea of what we're going to be doing is just using blue orbs and the hold basic attack to generate 6 yellow orbs and enough signature energy for our first ult. Once we have those 6 yellow orbs and cast the first ult, that's going to give us all the buffs we need to go into Blaze mode. And we'll go through Blaze mode as quickly as possible to build up enough signature energy to let loose the second ultimate, cause the fire field to come out and rotate out. So as always, I'll go through this piece by piece, kind of explain what we're doing and why we're doing it, and then at the end I'll let the whole rotation play out uninterrupted while annotating over it for you and putting up the information off the side so you can practice for yourself. But the SS and SS3 rotations, so we are going to start out, we are going to bring Vera in. After bringing Vera in, the first thing you're going to want to do is hold basic to do a full charge of the core passive gauge. You can actually either start with a blue 3 ping or the hold basic. I prefer the hold basic to start her rotation because if you bring her in and the enemy happens to have run away or is more distanced away from you than how you thought was going to be, this will help chase them down and guarantee that everything's going to be able to hit properly. So we go ahead, hold basic, charge it up. As we hold basic, that consumes our first 3 blue orbs and generates us 3 yellow orbs. As soon as the hold basic animation ends and you do the plunge attack, you can immediately ping another set of 3 blue orbs. This will give us enough energy for ult 1, and we immediately cast ult 1. This will consume the 6 yellow orbs, and we go into Blaze mode. From Blaze mode, really straightforward from here, we're going to do a red matrix ping, followed by a regular 3 red ping, and then from there, we hold the basic attack to go into the giant combo flurry that she does in Blaze mode. After that ends, we will build enough signature energy and we can go into the ult. So, matrix ping, 3 red ping, hold basic, go through the entire flurry, and then as soon as it ends, we cast ult. Good freeze frame. Really good freeze frame. That's the Vera we know and love. Second ult goes off, and then we swap to our next character. So very, very straightforward. Also note that as soon as you start doing the hold basic in Blaze mode and go into the combo flurry, go ahead and call your QTEs. Since we're not using Da Vinci on Watanabe or Lucia, we want to call them out as soon as possible so Watanabe's tank debuffs for the enemy start kicking in and they get that resistance shred. That helps make the rotation do more damage for while Vera is on the field. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Let's go through it uninterrupted, and I'll put in the annotations for you. So, Vera swaps in, hold basic, blue 3 ping, ult 1. Red matrix ping, red 3 ping, hold basic, call your QTEs. Ult 2. Vera swaps out. That's it. That is your SS rotation. Just do 1 round, you're good to go. Pretty simple. A lot easier to pick up than the Selena stuff, right? Am I right? I'm definitely right. Anyway, that's the SS rotation. Let's move on to the SS rotation. Okay, so for SS and beyond, we do get to make a couple of minor changes to the rotation to both speed it up, and we get to allow Vera to do a double ult rotation now due to the SS buffs letting her get through orbs quicker and giving her enough orbs to make it so 2 rotations are actually viable. A lot of this is going to be very similar, but I'll point out the little changes. But if you learn the SS rotation, you've got most of what you need to do the SS rotations. Let's go through the piece by piece here. So Vera will swap in. Because we are SS, we now get 3 yellow orbs for free. So we don't have to do hold to basic. We don't have to go through the whole animation of charging the core passive gauge. We can just immediately do a blue 3 ping, and that's going to get us enough energy for our ult. So we do that. Ult's online. We immediately ult, and now we go into Blaze mode. Blaze mode works exactly the same as it did for the double S rotation. So we're going to do a red matrix ping, a red 3 ping, and then from here we call the QTEs and start the combo flurry by holding basic. As soon as this animation plays out, we call our second ult. And now we start the second rotation. From here, very straightforward. You should have 6 blue orbs total. So you're just going to do 2 blue 3 pings. This is going to produce our yellow orbs. As soon as that happens, you can call your ult. Go into ult 1 to get into blaze mode. From here, same thing again. 2 red 3 pings. Hold down the basic attack to do the entire flurry. Call the QTEs as they come back up. Ult 2 goes off, and we swap Vera out. So, almost identical, except it's 2 rotations, and instead of doing hold basic in the base mode, we're just going to do a single blue 3 ping. Saves a lot of time, and that's what allows this rotation to work as a double rotation, because it's going to maintain the amplifier buff for the vast majority of it. But, again, pretty straightforward, pretty simple, so let's go through it. I'll annotate it, and you can have the directions off to the side to practice. So, triple S rotation. Swap Vera in, blue 3 ping, ult 1. Red matrix ping, red 3 ping, hold basic, call your QTEs. Ult 2. 2 blue 3 pings, ult 1. 2 red 3 pings, hold basic. Ult 2. Swap Vera out. That's it. Those are the only 2 rotations you need. These will also work if you are playing Vera as your lead DPS and using her as your pain cage boss nuker. Go ahead and load up your other characters on support memory builds. Do the exact same rotation because there's not really any quicker ways to get Vera to her ultimates, and that's how you're going to nuke the boss, obviously. So these rotations are more or less universal for everything you're going to be doing for Vera, and it covers all of the bases. If you're below triple S, you do a single rotation. If you're at triple S or above, you do a double, and that's really the only major difference aside from not needing to do a couple things due to the triple S buffs. So nice, simple, straightforward rotations that don't take me trying to give you an entire doctorate on why I chose them. So hopefully that'll make this guide a lot shorter and we all get out with a little bit more sanity in our day. But there's your rotations, practice away, and let's go put a bow on this guide. All right, so that's mostly going to wrap it up for the Vera Geiravor guide. I would show a full Warzone rotation, but unfortunately my Watanabe and Lucia are not built on the test server yet, and I don't quite have the resources to get them built just because I don't have enough time to do dailies and stuff like that for the basic stuff on my test server account. But the Warzone rotation doesn't change that much. If you want to go to my Lucia Pyro Oath guide and look at the Warzone rotation I put in there for the team back then, the only thing you would need to change is Watanabe stays at a single ult rotation for every time he comes onto the field, and then you would actually bring in Vera for her rotations depending on what rank she's at, as opposed to just going back and forth between Watanabe and Lucia. So general basic order will be Watanabe will start the Warzone, you'll swap to Lucia after that, you'll bring Vera in, and then just repeat from there. Pretty straightforward. So if Vera is your main fire DPS, if you don't have Pyro Oath or Watanabe or don't have a good way to set up pain cage fights due to having a lack of a fire attacker right now, maybe you're waiting on Dante or whatnot, just load up your other 2 constructs on support memory builds, take Vera's DPS memory build, and do the exact same rotations as you would for the Warzone. Her rotations really do not change, and there's not really any way to speed up the aspect of her getting to her ultimates. So if she is going to be your pain cage boss nuker, you basically play her exactly the same, except you use her DPS set, and your other 2 units will support with their own support memory sets. But yeah, Vera is very straightforward, very simple, and I'm very okay with that after the Selena guide, not needing copious amounts of hours of testing and retesting to try and figure out if the rotations I'd come up with were viable or correct. This one was pretty straightforward. Vera is very easy to pick up. She feels good to play. You get to do inputs fast, but everything feels very streamlined, and it doesn't feel like you have to go so fast that you're going to make execution errors. So pretty big fan of this design after the hilarious undertaking that the Selena guide was. So no real complaints on that front. But as mentioned, Vera is extremely free to play friendly. You only need her at SS with no signature weapon to have her be functional and on your fire team. And again, she is going to be a massive boost to Dante. If you are planning to roll Dante, you should definitely pick up Vera. It's going to make him that much better. If you are absolutely strapped and have to save for DMC, of course, do that. DMC is a one-time collab, and it is literally a little over a month away from the time of this recording, so it's almost time for that. But let's go ahead and wrap this one up. Keep it short, quote unquote, by my standards, but definitely shorter in the Selena guide. And yeah, we'll go from there. I will be working on the Alyssa Echo Leap guide here soon, and I know people have been asking about the elemental effects guides. I'm going to work on those. I will do elemental effects guides, I promise. It's just gonna have to fit in somewhere with the schedule while I get through this last month of Evo crunch. And of course, the DMC collab is going to be a whole different kind of crunch, but I'm down for that one. That's fine. That'll be a good time. So bear with me. I've got to get through this last month, and then we should be back on track for me focusing a lot more on PGR videos and guides. But I'm still going to put out plenty of stuff in the meantime. So as always, I appreciate all the feedback. I appreciate all the questions and input. If you have questions on Vera, if you're feeling conflicted about whether or not you should go ahead and grab a copy because you're worried about having enough for DMC, feel free to leave me questions down in the comments. I always try and answer those and give the best input I can to try and guide people on, you know, where your resources are best spent. But if you can at all afford this character, she's worth it. Absolutely worth picking up, and is so free to play friendly for being a paid S rank that it's pretty hard to not recommend getting at least that one copy while you can get it at 100%. But we'll call that good for now. As always, appreciate you all. Thank you for all the feedback and support. You want to do the YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe. It's always appreciated. It's never necessary. But I'm going to be done. This office is really hot because I can't have fans on when I'm recording voiceovers. So y'all take care, be safe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.